Before we start, I'd like to mention that all of the things said in this video are simply a vision for the finished product and are completely subject to change. Any and all mentioned functions, mechanics, and concepts may be changed or completely removed in the future. Hey everyone, welcome to the first video on the new channel. This one's gonna be a bit different. Since I want to take this game seriously, at least for a while, I'd like to talk about my vision for it. I mentioned some basic lore and other stuff about the game in the devlog, but I've since then decided to continue making this into a full game. So in this video, I'd like to share my vision for how this game could look when finished. Let's get right into things, as I don't want to make it too long and start with the genre. I originally planned for this to be a bullet hell, but there aren't actually that many bullets in the game, and I want to have a diverse mix of enemies, including a lot of melee and other interesting attacks. So I think the game is better described as a mix between a bullet hell and a 2D shooter, plain and simple. Now that that's clear, let's talk about the point of the game. I already mentioned that I want to make many plans for the game that are going to act like levels, and that's what we're going to do. We're not yet sure on the number of planets we want to make for release, but they do take quite a while to make. Initially, we thought about making the planet choosing into a RNG based minigame, similar to what the Sun and Moon Pokemon games did with the wormholes, but since then we decided that it would be much better for the game to have an actual map where you'll be able to find these planets and other secrets. So one of the main goals of the game would therefore be exploration, and by implementing multiple systems, I'd like to encourage the player to find and beat all of these planets in the game in a completely unrestricted order. This means that players will be able to play whichever planet they like, even a difficulty 5 planet right after opening the game, but there will be certain things that encourage you to get stronger first. So let's go over all these systems. First of all, let's go over buying and crafting. There will be 2 currencies in game, being alien parts, which act like generic money, and materials, which will be unique and dropped from specific mobs and bosses. In the main menu, you'll have a home ship tab that will basically take you to your own little corner of space where you'll have your home ship. Here, you'll do things like picking your loadout, crafting and buying other spaceships that will for the most part only act as housing for your NPCs. That's right, each planet will have an associated NPC, and after beating the planet, the NPC will move to your property as long as there's enough space. These NPCs will have a happiness level, similarly to Terraria for example, and based on their satisfaction, they will sell you a variety of items or provide some sort of buffs or other cool stuff. These NPCs are most likely where most of your money will be going. The extra ships that you'll be able to buy for them to live on will mostly be decorative, and they'll also act like small chill out corners where you'll be able to do fun stuff like play minigames or listen to OSTs. So let's talk more about materials and crafting. These will be used to upgrade your character, so you'll probably want to spend a decent amount of time farming for materials to get the upgrades that you want. There are 2 major things that you'll be using your materials for. The first one is gun modifications. Currently, I'm thinking that there will be 5 guns in the game, all of them completely different to suit everyone's personal playstyle and the playstyles of different planets. Now, this is going to be a quite difficult thing to do, but I'm going to try to make them as balanced as possible so that picking every gun is a solid option. I'm not going to be going over them just yet because they're very experimental and subject to change at this point. What I can tell you about them though is that they will be treated as a sort of class that you play with. Instead of sort of steroiding the base stats, the gun modifications will instead improve on the disadvantages of the gun, in order to not punish players that decide to stick with a single gun even though it's not optimal for the planet they are about to play. An example of this would be to have a sniper rifle, which would obviously be very good on planets that have elite mobs. A drawback of a gun like this would be that it would be very painful to use on a horde planet with plenty of mobs each wave, as the gun has a really slow fire rate and can only hurt a single mob at a time. The objective of the gun mods would therefore be to make the sniper rifle into a more useful weapon in these kinds of scenarios. You could have a mod that temporarily switches the projectile into one that shoots multiple weaker bolts at the same time, to make it better at killing multiple targets, or a penetration shot maybe. Another example of this would be to reduce the spread pattern on a shotgun to make it more accurate and suitable for single target damage. The other way you'll be spending your materials is by crafting implants. Since you're a cyborg, you'll have multiple slots on your body where you can insert upgrades. These slots will be improving things that make sense for that slot. For example, the hovering device is the reason you're fast enough to fight aliens in the first place, so the upgrades can slightly improve your mobility, such as movement speed or dash cooldown. These upgrades can be either passive or active, completely based on your preference, again to encourage you to make your own choices and forge your own playstyle. You can see a pattern here at this point. The way I'm trying to design the basic game loop and the systems in this game is for them to be as unrestricted as possible, while still providing some guidance along the way to the goal. And even though mission nutrition will generally be quite difficult, I want every single player to play the game exactly how they want to, regardless of their skill level. Now, all of this might sound cool in theory, but what actually makes my game special in the first place? Let me introduce to you a concept I've been referring to as level mechanics. Basically, most of the planets in this game will have a special mechanic in the form of a player interaction or an environment interaction, puzzle, a quick time event, and so on. This mechanic doesn't always have to be mandatory, and it can only be present during the boss, so let me give you a few examples for these mechanics. There's a planet I'm working on where the boss will resemble some kind of a crustacean. There will also be multiple pillars on the map which you'll be able to use as cover against projectiles. This boss will occasionally do a charge attack aimed at the player, and if you guide him to charge into one of the pillars, it will be destroyed and the boss will receive more damage for a short period of time. Another example would be a quick time event, where one of the boss's attacks would be that he takes you underground, where you'll have to quickly find your way out of a maze made from his tunnels. This specific mechanic has been inspired by a mobile game ad I saw somewhere. In these tunnels, you can only move horizontally and vertically, and each movement will take you to the end of that tunnel. And if you don't quickly find your way out before he catches up to you, he will throw you out of the ground and you'll receive a lot of damage. For a more difficult example, you'll be on a planet where the main theme is that it's in a split dimension, sort of like a limbo, and there will be a portal in the center of the map that will swap these dimensions. One of the mobs might be completely invincible in one of the dimensions, but will still be able to attack you, so you'll have to swap. Or the boss may have an attack that is completely unavoidable in one of the dimensions. On top of already dealing with tough and fast enemies, you'll constantly have to micromanage which dimension you're in. So including these mechanics will make most planets a completely new and unique experience. But let me know what you guys think about this. I personally think that this is a pretty cool way to make a somewhat basic 2D shooter much more fun and engaging, and for some of the planets you'll really have to figure out how to beat these mechanics and how you need to change your gameplay. And yeah, this is basically all of the stuff I have for now, and while it will definitely be really challenging to make, I think it's a really solid idea that I can't wait to work on. So if you're new here and like the idea, I'd love if you stayed around because you definitely won't regret the ride. Once again, I'd like to remind you that we still have spots for testers, so if you're interested in joining the testing team, being able to play the game much earlier, and getting a free copy when the game comes out, join us on our Discord, link in the description. Thank you very much for watching this video, and see you guys next time.